Alright, so in this chapter I just want to go over really quick the fundamentals and basics of jQuery. Okay, so if you already are familiar with how to use selectors and event handlers and things like that, then feel free to skip this section. So this is geared towards the beginners, and to use jQuery you need to include it in your document. Alright, and there's a few different ways to do that. One is to go to jQuery.com, download one of these versions of jQuery. You can get the compressed or uncompressed version. Okay, if you download that, okay, and go to your downloads, and you should see a file like this. The current version is 1.11.1. Yours could be different, and then you could just move that into your file structure. Okay, so I'll just say copy. We'll go to, where are we, dev, and usually you'd have probably a JS folder for your JavaScripts. You could put that in there, and then you would just link to that. Another way you can do it is use a CDN. Okay, jQuery has their own CDN, but I usually use Google's. Excuse me. Okay, Google hosted libraries. You can click on jQuery, and it'll give you the link right here. Okay, so that's what we're going to do through this series. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just paste a basic structure in here. And you can see that I've included this Google CDN link. Now, if you're on your local file system like I am, and you're not using a web server, then this link here may not work. So just add https:// in front of it. Okay, so if we save this and go to our page and reload, obviously we have no content. If this was wrong for some reason, this link, let's just mess it up and save it and reload. If you have your console open in Chrome or whatever browser you use, you'll get this error here. Alright, so just make sure that you get no messages or errors. Alright, so usually you would include a link to an external style sheet that you'd use. That's what we're going to do through the project. But for simplicity in this video, we're just going to do it in the head area in some script tags. Okay, so it's most common to include your JavaScript in the head, but if you're using jQuery, you won't be able to access anything on the page unless you make sure that the document's ready. Alright, so in jQuery, the way we do that is we say jQuery, which is represented with the $, and we want to say document, and then we want to do .ready. Okay, and then inside of the ready function we want to create another self-calling function. Okay, so everything that you do is going to be in between here. Alright, so let's just do something simple. I'm going to just create a heading, say welcome everyone, and I want to go over click handlers and things like that, so I'll just create a link that goes nowhere. I'll give it a class of my link, and I'll just say click me. Alright, and I spelled everyone wrong. So let's start with the selectors. Alright, so let's say we want this h1 tag. To get that in jQuery, we want to use the $, and then inside here we just want to put whatever we need, so h1. Alright, so this is going to access all the h1s on the page. Alright, so if we want to get something specific like this link, we could use the class. Okay, so we could say .mylink, and that's going to target this here, this link. Alright, so let's make this h1 again. And what we can do is run methods on the selector. Alright, a common method used in jQuery is add class. Okay, so you can add a CSS class to this element. Alright, so let's go ahead and create one real quick. Okay, we're going to have some style tags for our CSS. Usually this would be in another file, but for simplicity I'm just going to do this. Okay, so let's add a class of red, and we'll just say color red, and then we'll add a class for green. Alright, and we'll just say color green. Alright, so if we want to add the class of red to this h1, then we can just do that. Add class red. Okay, if we save it and reload, the title is now red. Alright, this ran when the document was ready. Now let's say we don't want it to turn red right away. We want it to turn red when we click the link. Alright, so we need to set up a click handler. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to take the link. Okay, so we'll say my link, and then we're going to say dot on, and then the on, the first parameter is going to be the event that you want. In this case will be click. Okay, and then the second parameter is going to be a function. Okay, you see these all the time in jQuery. They're self-calling functions. They don't have a name. They just run when you create them. Alright, so whatever we put in here is going to happen when we click me on the link. Alright, so just to test it real quick, let's just do an alert. Okay, we'll just say you clicked. Reload. Okay, so we get an alert. So what we want to do now is let's just grab this, copy it, and put that in here. Save, reload. Okay, so now it's not red, it starts out black, and we click the link, and then it turns red. Alright, so there's different kinds of functions you can use here, or methods. When I say method, same thing as function. Alright, so let's say when we click the link, we want the H1 to fade out, which is a nice little animation method. And then we can put the speed in here, let's say 500 milliseconds. Okay, if we save, actually let's put 1,000. No, 500 is good. So if we reload and click this, you can see the H1 fades out. Okay, if we click it again, it doesn't do anything. Alright, so if you want it so that you click it and it goes away and you click again and it comes back, you can use a method called fade toggle. Alright, so if we do that, click it, goes away, click it again, it comes back. Okay. We also have slide methods. We could use slide toggle. If we do that, you can see that it slides back and forth. You can use slide up and down just like we did fade, but obviously it's not going to come back. Alright, it just goes up. So that's an event handler. There's other kinds of events you can use. We can use, for instance, mouse enter. Alright, so let's do that. If we go into the click me, it calls the mouse enter. It doesn't come back when we escape it because that's a different event. That's the mouse leave event. So we can actually set that. Okay, so if we say mouse leave, and we'll say slide down. Okay, so we slide in, it goes up, slide out, it goes down, and it's a little quirky because the link is just so small, but basically you get the point. I think a better example would be to add and remove a class. Okay, so we'll add the class red, and then down here we can say remove class. Oops. We'll say remove class red. Okay, so now if we enter, alright, unexpected token on 18. What did I do here? We don't need this extra parenthesis. Okay, so you can see that the color changes when we go in and out. Alright, so let's say we want to replace the text. Alright, well, let's say when we click on the link, we want this text to change. Alright, so I'm just going to comment all this out. And I want to show you something else as well. The on method, we can actually use what's called a convenience method. Okay, so instead of saying on click or whatever, we can use the convenience method, just .click. Okay, so we'll say my link .click, and then all we need to put in here is our function. Okay, so that gives us kind of a shortcut to do the same thing as the on method. Okay, so let's say on click, then we want to let's grab the h1, and we're going to say dot text, and we'll say hello world. Alright, so let's reload. We click on the link, changes to hello world. We can also add HTML. Alright, so let's replace the text method with HTML, and let's put in here, make it an H3. Okay, so if we reload, then turns in, actually the H3 is now in the H1, so you'd probably want to use replace. I'm sorry, not replace. Replace with. There we go. Alright, and there's a lot of different functions you can use. You can use append. Okay, so this will put something in the H1, basically just like we just did. Okay, except it doesn't replace it. It adds on to it. So if we look at the HTML here, you have the H3 within the H1. Okay, but it didn't replace the text. Alright, so let's see, what else do we have here? If we want to, we can actually change the CSS of something. Alright, so you can add classes like we just did, but we can also do the CSS. So if we say h1 dot CSS, and let's actually this should be parentheses, and then we can put the selector or the property, which will do font size. Oops. Say font size, and then the second parameter will be the value we want. Let's say 40 pixels. Okay, so now if we reload and click, it gives us 40 pixels. So I'm going to stop there. Basically, I just wanted to get you familiar with selectors and click events, which are two of the most fundamental things you need to know when using jQuery. So in the next video, we will start our slider project.